we're talking about here seems to be more changing the power balance to make it fairer, to make it more just. But I guess my question with regard to governance has to do with how does that actually make Honduras a more governable country? Because I've been in the United States many times where I see a group of Hondurans, all of the same social class, and the meeting doesn't work. Nobody listens to each other. Everybody's talking. There's chaos. I've seen other meetings where you have people of the upper class, more education, more experience traveling, etc. The same thing. They're all talking, no one's listening, mass chaos. I've seen another meeting where you have more balance. Upper class people, middle class, and lower class. Fair. There's chaos, they're all talking, no one's listening. I've had situations where there are rules, there's a parliamentary procedure in a meeting. The rules are there, they're great rules. It works for everybody in the United States that's used to it. But you put a group of Hondurans together, of all social classes, all education, wealth, poor, rich, in a room with parliamentary procedures. It's chaos because nobody pays attention to the rules. So it's nice to say, in theory, that you can change a piece of paper, a constitution, you can redistribute power, wealth, okay? But in practice, in the real world, if you still have the same players, with the same culture, with the same level of education, with the same way of thinking, even though you have a great new system, a great new piece of paper, you still have chaos. How do you change that so that you can actually have a system that works, that is governable?
Fíjate que yo también he visto.
I have also seen groups coming together of different types. I have been in meetings of laborers, very poor, all of them. I have been in meetings in which you are surprised of the level of knowledge that there is there in their poor language, the knowledge, the wisdom also. I have been with other poor sectors. I have been also with wealthy sectors. The difference is made what motivates them to be meeting together. Motivation, as you say in English. And here, the motivation is the participation of all. This is what's new. Of course, you cannot, in participative democracy, make an assembly of a participative budget without an authority. The authority must be there, but this authority, to be respected, must be legitimate. Right now they don't have it. Right now many of the constituted authorities, congressmen and mayors, they cannot go to their communities without coming there in bulletproof vehicles or bodyguards, because people do not want them. This is a reality. This is a signal of alert, as when in Chernobyl the alerts were going deep and they did not pay attention, this thing exploded. So the reality of Honduras can explode if we do not understand that we have this situation. Of course, changes should not be supported or to hope for them to be supported by extreme sectors, because these sectors will only bring convulsion to the delicate situation of Honduras. What do I want to say with this? The social being, each person, what determines the moral of a person? It is determined by its position, his or her position in society. The one who doesn't have anything, who never had anything, who doesn't know what owning anything is, not even a toy when he was a child, has a very different vision of what our children can have. How we achieve the change of that vision, we need to solve the elemental problems. These are urgent to be solved. Education and health and housing and work are issues that should not be solved with an ideological optic, but with a scientific optic, because these are problems of bad
En una
distribution.
línea de distribución,
In a
usted
line of
trae, ¿sabe
distribution,
qué podemos
if
hacer?
you bring, and you know what we can
Vamos a
do?
pedirle a los
We will
estudiantes
ask
de
the
la
students
Facultad
of the
de
Faculty
Ingeniería
of
Industrial
Industrial Engineering
que presenten, que
to present
compitan
to us
entre
that they
ellos, a
compete
ver quién
within
puede
themselves to
presentar
see who can
una solución
present
para que
a
la medicina en
solution so
Honduras
that
pueda
medicine in
estar bien
Honduras
distribuida.
can be well distributed.
Y utilizamos, y los hacemos
And
pensar,
we make
y
them
los
think,
hacemos a los
and we
estudiantes
make the
empezar a
students
sentir afecto
start
por
feeling
su país, y
affection
no
for
solo
their
a pensar
country, and not
en
only to
dónde
be
voy a
thinking
trabajar
of
y
where will I
cómo voy a
work
resolver mi
and how
problema
will I solve my
particular.
particular
Igual
problem.
podemos agarrar a los
We can do
arquitectos
the same with
a
architects,
diseñarnos y a
to
que compitan
design
los
and to
estudiantes de
compete
arquitectura
the
de todas las
architecture students
universidades
from all
a
universities
solucionar
to
problemas
try
de
to
todos los
solve problems
hondureños.
of all the
¿Por qué?
Hondurans, because
Tenemos que-
we have to
Tenemos que sembrar en Honduras
we
la
have to
semilla
plant in
que va a
Honduras the
germinar
seed
tarde o
that will
temprano, que es
germinate
la solidaridad.
sooner or later, which is solidarity.
Esta sociedad se
This
caracteriza
society is
con todos sus
characterized with
defectos
all
de
these
ser una
defects
sociedad
of
individualista.
being an
Pero
individualistic
donde
society,
vive
but
la
where
solidaridad
there
generalmente
is
es en las
solidarity
capas bajas,
is in the
donde no hay
lower
nada que
layers of people,
repartirse.
where there's nothing to
Ahí la gente
share.
pobre
So they are
nunca le
people,
niega a
they
nadie,
never deny
no
you
deja de
anything.
compartir lo que
They
le
do not
falta.
stop sharing what they are
Pero en
lacking.
las clases medias
But in the
y las
middle
clases
class
altas se ha
classes
olvidado el
or
elemento
high
de la
upper
solidaridad.
class, we
Siempre
have
hay
forgotten
gente que lo
solidarity.
hace.
There are still
Pero
people
en la
that do it,
regla general,
but the general
ese
rule,
elemento está
that
ausente.
element
¿Por
is
qué?
absent.
Porque
Why?
tenemos un sistema
Because we
que
have a
privilegia la
system that gives
privilegia el
privileges to
Hace que nos
individualism.
olvidemos
It
que
makes us
tenemos
forget that
responsabilidad
we
con los
have
demás.
responsibilities toward
creo que eso
each
también hay
other,
que cambiar.
and this
Y
we
eso
also need
no
to
lo puedes
change.
cambiar decretando.
You cannot change
No puedes
this
decir,
just
a
by making
partir de hoy
decrees
en
or saying
Honduras
starting
todos
today in
somos
Honduras
solidarios.
we're all
No, eso no se
solidary.
puede. Pero
This
se
we cannot
puede
do,
cuando
but we
incentivas
can
a
do
que
this when we
caminen en esa
incentivate
dirección.
for them to
El
walk
ejemplo
in
que te
that
acabo de
direction.
poner de los
The example I have
estudiantes.
just given
Aquí
of
en
the
Honduras,
students
fíjate
here
que
in Honduras.
durante muchos años,
During many
los
years,
estudiantes de último
students
año
of
hacen un servicio
last
social
year they have
que
a
se supone
social
que
service
tiene
which
esos
is supposed to have those
Pero el servicio
objectives,
social
but
cada
social
vez ha ido
service
perdiendo
it's
sentido.
been
Y lo que
losing
terminan
sense,
haciendo
and what
el
they
servicio
end up
social
doing,
es hacer
social
una
services,
colecta de
they
dinero para
gather
pagar
some
y
money
que alguien más
to
vaya a
pay
hacer
for someone
una
to
plancha
go
o un
and
trabajo
build
de albañilería.
something or do
Yo
some
creo que
masonry work.
también
I believe
esos
also that these
estudiantes
students,
debemos involucrarlos de
we
otra
must
forma,
involve them in a different
en
way,
generar su
in
conciencia y que
generate their
participen
awareness,
en
and
el
for them
desarrollo
to
del país.
participate
Un
in
estudiante
the
de
development
quinto
of the
curso
country. A student
de
of
escuela secundaria
fifth
puede
year
ayudar
or
a
like a junior
alfabetizar a
high
alguien
school
que
can
no está
help
alfabetizado. Si tú
bring
le
literacy
das
to someone who
como
is not
su
literate.
trabajo
If you
social de este
give
año
this
es
person
que
as the social work of
alfabetice
this year
a
is that
5
he will
personas de
bring
edad
literacy
mediana
to
o
5
alta
people
que
of
no son
high
alfabetos.
or
Ese
mid-age who
trabajo
are
lo va a hacer humano,
now
lo va a hacer
illiterate, and
que hay
this
que
work
tener
will make him
conexión
human,
con el
and
resto de nuestra
this will
sociedad.
make him feel that he has to have a
Son
connection
ideas
with
que
the
yo
rest
estoy
of the
dando,
society. These are
que
ideas
no
that I am
están
giving,
comprometidas
which are
en un
not
plan de
committed
trabajo,
in a
pero
plan
que
of
sí son
work,
ideas
but
que
that
vamos
are
a ir ordenando
ideas that we will
para en un
continue to
momento
order
adecuado
so that in
presentar
such a
un
time we might
formato,
present
un
a format, a
documento que
document
contenga todos
that
nuestros
will contain
pensamientos,
all our
que
thoughts,
son los míos y
which
los de
are
muchos
my
compañeros
thoughts
más
and the thoughts of
que
many more
pensamos
colleagues who think
como esto.
as we
You've
think.
got, in my opinion, some very practical problems to deal with. You want to change this country to make it a better country, and what you're proposing sounds good on paper. It sounds like the right thing to do because something has to. The status quo has to change. Now, the problem that you have, I think, is that there is a lot of fear in this country from both the haves and the have-nots. There's a lot of distrust from all sides. And I guess what I wonder is, it never seems to be the right time to make a radical change in the society. So you might as well do it now. But at a time 2 years away from the overthrow of a freely elected president, where there's still so much distrust and hurt, people aren't talking to each other. Family members aren't talking to each other. People are calling each other golpista or comunista or socialista. How do we get away from this name calling, this labeling? Because without that, you cannot have national reconciliation because no one's going to talk to each other. So how do you begin? What comes first? National reconciliation, building that trust again, that ability to work together to talk to each other, or implementing the kind of fairly radical, not radical, but pretty substantial and ambitious change that you're talking about. and still be able to govern and provide clean water, turn on the electricity, encourage public foreign investment, create a good image of Honduras to the outside world. All those things in less than 4 years. Why do you want to be president?
Fíjese usted que
You can see that everything that we have talked about, all the ideas that we can have, cannot be executed if we do not have a process of reconciliation before. Reconciliation gives as a result the capacity that we sit down in a constituency or a new forum or in an assembly to discuss about the future of Honduras. I told Presidente Lobo when he invited me about a year to talk about this subject, and I said, President, as long as the first one who got hit from the coup d'etat is still out of the country, we cannot start reconciliation because this is latent. This needs to be reverted. With the return of Presidente Zelaya, things start to change. And I believe that it's mandatory, an obligation of every leader or whoever calls himself a leader and that loves this country to act in a way that those who continue to say golpista or resistencia communist, that they will take a step to sit together, and when we talk we find out that we're not so different, that what we have are just prejudice, some against the other ones, that at the end we can always find common points, common ground, as you say in the United States, we can always find it. But for that, there are some of us that need to take those first steps to see that this is possible. And what will happen when we take those first steps? The extremes do not like it, that reconciliation begins to walk like that, but we need that, and that's what we must do, and I am willing to take that first step if it's needed to be seen that in Honduras the dialogue can work. I am willing to talk with anyone because we are not afraid of talking with anyone. Our ideas will not change because we talk to someone who thinks different, and if they change, it's because my ideas are not solid or because I am wrong. So I say again something that I have always said. We say that we're civilized, so let's act as civilized people. People who are civilized talk and they give space to reason, and reason is the tool with which human beings have come out of the caverns. It wasn't with sticks, it wasn't with stones, it was with reason that it was written, it was with reason that we have made it and we have built a civilization. And on behalf of reason, I believe that we must sit down, and I believe also that not everything that I think is correct, not all the things that others who are on the other side think is also incorrect. This is difficult to understand, but we must make an effort, and we should not fall under the problem of the fact that the screams or yelling of some radicals will make you be afraid of doing the correct thing. In times of crisis, we must do, and it is needed that someone will have the courage to do the right thing.
One of the things that I'm interested in knowing is your management style, your administrative style, because if you're going to be president of a country and you have these ambitious goals to refound Honduras and rewrite the Constitution and set up a national constituent assembly, all this takes a lot of time. And on top of that, you're going to have to fight against those powers that do not want a change in the